So it's been a year or so. I first uploaded my video on YouTube on my self-taught journey on like front-end development and web design. So I thought it would be nice to revisit that and share with you guys what I've learned so far and what my 2024 roadmap looks like for the rest of the year. And yeah, keep in mind this roadmap or everything I'm sharing in this video is something that has worked for me, and some of things hasn't worked for me. So take it as a grain of salt. You don't have necessarily to follow exactly what I'm doing or what I'm planning to do next. So yeah, let's get on with it. So right now, I'm definitely confident to say that I'm very proficient with the basic web technologies like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And to be honest with you, like it took me a year or so to really kind of like be comfortable with working with these three technologies before moving on to things more advanced things like React or like Next.js or other libraries out there. But yeah, I think mastering the basics of the web is really important. So it's really key to understand the semantics of HTML. So like things like section, asides, footer, and header, making sure your like website structure is like readable and follows accessibility guidelines. I guess HTML is just building the skeleton of the website, and I think if you're diving into like front-end development or web design, you have to understand the core basics of like HTML, how to build a skeleton, and understanding like the semantics as well. And then we have CSS, and CSS is continuously evolving, so there's honestly a lot of things. It's limitless in terms of the things that you have to learn. And honestly, it's really exciting, especially there's a lot of features that is being slowly supported, and it really enhances the overall developer experience. But overall, I think in terms of the basics of CSS, you really need to understand how to play around with layouts, especially with Flexbox, grid layouts, and how to, make your layouts responsive. So I think that's one of the key things about CSS or layouts. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of more basics things that you need to learn, but I think that's something that I cannot really cover everything in this video. So I recommend taking a look at like roadmap.sh, the front-end development roadmap, and they will cover a lot of like the CSS, HTML, and a lot of front-end things that you should learn. But yeah, I won't cover that in this video, but layouts are very important. And another thing is, for at least on my part, after learning the basics syntax of CSS, I quickly transitioned into Tailwind CSS. So Tailwind CSS, you can just write inline styles within your HTML. I know that people like don't like it a lot, but once I've used Tailwind CSS, I never looked back again. So yeah, that's something you can take a look at. So JavaScript, I'm still learning a lot of things still, but in the beginning stages when I first started learning JavaScript, there were a lot of like concepts and theories I had to learn in order to build my foundations. And honestly, it was quite mundane, but after, that boring process, it really helped me realize that understanding these boring stuff really enabled me to build more advanced stuff and creative stuff by myself without relying too much on tutorials. So I think really having a good foundation with JavaScript or even other two technologies like CSS or HTML really sets you ahead as a developer in the future. So yeah, that's the basics of the web. Let's dive deeper into the rabbit hole. So after learning the basics of the web, I dove deeper into like libraries and frameworks, and to be honest, at this stage it was quite overwhelming for me, especially with the abundance of technologies that exist. So I didn't really know what to learn. And once I picked a framework, for instance React, I was still doubting myself whether I should learn other frameworks like Quick, Solid, because they have these features that React doesn't have. So I was having FOMO syndrome, like fear of missing out, and I didn't really know what to learn. And it really distracted me from like my main goal that I want to achieve, is to comfortably build projects or like any projects that I want. And that constant distraction of like being distracted with other frameworks and trying to learn this other framework instead of sticking to one, it really hindered that kind of like goal that I wanted to achieve. So I guess my best advice for you is, if you've just learned the basics of the web and diving deeper into frameworks or libraries, just choose one technology, stick with it for a long time, and transition to a new technology whenever you really feel the need to. So for my case, I chose to learn React, and honestly, it's been a really great decision for me now I think about it. Because their ecosystem is so big, so there's a lot of resources that you can take and like learn from. And I think that's one of the biggest things that really helped me stay within the ecosystem itself is because there's the abundance amount of resources. So whenever I have like a challenge of implementing a feature, I can just search up on Google or YouTube and boom, there's my answer. So I think it's really good for beginners. And in terms of like creative development, there's a lot of like support for like creative libraries like Figma, Motion, and GSAP. You can also use things like React 3 Fiber if you're interested in like 3D development. If you're diving into like frameworks or libraries, you can't really go wrong with React. So while I was learning React, I also learned animation libraries like GSAP and Figma Motion. And I know there's this dilemma between people thinking whether it should learn GSAP or Figma Motion. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter. They both do the same thing, but it's just a little bit different. So for my case, I tried both libraries, and Figma Motion was right for me because it really worked well with React, especially with their declarative approach. Figma Motion, you declare like a reference variable and then you attach it to an element and you can animate it. It's very straightforward, and there's also like the motion component, so it just makes it so much easier to animate with React. Whereas in GSAP, it kind of breaks the React pattern where you have to use query selectors to animate your elements, which I think it's a little bit messy for me, like personally. So I chose Figma Motion. But yeah, I guess my advice is just try both libraries to see whatever works best for you. And while I was learning development, I also learned web design. And I think learning web design has to be one of the best decisions I've made to complement my skills as a creative developer or a front-end developer. My reason is that you have this creative control like from the start to the end of a project. And it just allows so much creative freedom, especially if you're like doing freelance. You can help your clients bring the projects from the start to the finish. And I think it's honestly a perfect skill for developers who are more design oriented. Aside from like freelancing, like you can also design and like develop your own passion projects without asking another person to design the website for you. You can have your full creativity onto that project, and it just allows so much freedom in it. So I guess for the rest of 2024, I'm going to continue learning Next.js, and I think it's a really great framework. That's the one that I've been using to build projects for my clients and my passion projects. And so far, I think it was a really great transition from React to Next.js. Their ecosystem is pretty big and it's built on top of React, so they have like their own features. So if you're transitioning from React, I would definitely recommend Next.js. If not, I'll probably explore other frameworks in the future, something like Astro for like static websites, because that's something I mainly focus on. So that's also like a field of interest as well. I guess the other thing as well is 3D. And once I mentioned before, 3D is so expansive. And you can do things like fully 3D immersions, or you can do low 3D, like for example, like having objects in like your websites, and even things like shaders. So recently I've dived into shaders, and I definitely want to dive deeper into shaders and being able to like weave animations with like Figma Motion and like shaders, which is something that I definitely want to do in the future. Not too much of a big fan in terms of like fully 3D immersion environments, but yeah, things might change, but we'll see. So aside from like Next.js and 3D, I'll probably expand my skill sets more on like TypeScript, because I heard a lot of good things about the type safety of TypeScript, and I eventually want to adopt TypeScript in my old projects and even my new projects as well. So yeah, it's definitely my to learn list. And then after that, I also want to explore on more of like web apps, e-commerce, and payment portal kind of integrations. So yeah, that's all the things I want to learn for 2024. And aside from technical skills, I also want to mention business skills. And as a freelancer, I feel like it's so important to have business skills. And I've been reading so much like content on books and like articles on like business skills. So things like sales, marketing, and like how to effectively communicate with your clients and how you price your work. And in general, there's so many things that comes around when you're a freelancer or like a solopreneur. Aside from like designing beautiful and code accessible and usable websites, you're also solving a business problem for the clients. So yeah, so that's something I'm gonna make more videos on in this channel, talking more about like freelancing and just in general, like how to get clients, how to price your work, and things like that. So yeah, definitely look forward to that. So once you've learned the basics of whatever technology that you're learning, just go build projects and don't follow tutorials from start to finish, or you'll get stuck in tutorial hell. So this way, you'll struggle as you try to figure out the problem yourself. And once you solve the problem by yourself, that concept is locked in your brain. So the next time you face the same exact problem in a different project, you already know how to solve that problem because you've done it before. And on the other hand, of watching tutorials from start to finish, your brain just kind of turn off and going into this automatic mode, copying and pasting what they do in the tutorial, which is not really that good for learning at all. So I think building projects is the best way to effectively learn something. So for my case, I really enjoyed building front end and creative websites. And in the beginning stages, I went on like front end mentor and front end practice to like recreate UIs by myself rather than watching a tutorial. And I've found that's immensely helpful just to not only learn something, but at the same time have like these repetitive components I've built before and adapt it to my new projects so that you save time, a lot of time. And one of the things that I've noticed throughout my experience is the more consistent I am with building my own projects, the more I'm able to kind of like digest whatever is on a website and then extract that kind of effect or like this creative animation or whatever into my own project by myself without any tutorials. So I think that's one of the biggest benefit of like keep building your own projects, because you notice these patterns and you kind of understand how like the technology works. So that way you can become more of an independent like developer. You know how to do this already, so you just kind of like using that knowledge that you have and kind of extracting it into your own project. So the final thing I want to talk about might come off as controversial. In terms of freelancing, I've been doing this for over a year or so, and I've noticed that clients don't really care about the technologies or tools that you're using to build their websites. And clients, they just want their business problems to be solved. They want more profit, more clients to their business, or even better brand presence. Most of the times, they don't really care if you're using Next.js or Webflow to build their websites, as long as their business problems are solved. So I think my point is, as a freelancer, you solve problems, not necessarily you're a freelancer that build websites. So if you still have this inner conflict on deciding which technology you should learn, I would say that it doesn't really matter as long as you find a technology that works best for you, and that also allows you to do your best work and deliver the most value to your clients, so that you're happy and your client is also happy. So yeah, that's all I have for today. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And yeah, I've been quite busy in terms of freelancing. So if you enjoyed this type of content, also let me know down below in the comments. See you in the next one. Bye bye.